How's it everybody? Dwayne here from 480BC Supplies. In today's video, we're going to look at the Lee ACP press, the automatic case primer. Earlier in the year, about 3 months ago, we did a video about the setup and a small review of the press. Now, I've been living with this press now since that time. I have primed plus minus 5,000 9mm cases on this press, small pistol primers. We had one or two issues. We're going to talk about that today. But for now, let's look at how this press actually works. Let me explain how this press works. The press is based on the APP press. Basically the same linkages and function of the APP press. A couple of small detail changes there. You've got the primer blast shield here. The two bolts here where the press runs on are different. Your link in the back here has also been cut away. This ACP press doesn't ship with a universal case feeder or any type of case feeder. You need to buy this separate. But you do get the normal case slider insert like you get on the APP press. So that will feed the cases for you, and when you add a universal case feeder, you speed everything up immensely. So the top half of the press has got this, that, and these fingers. This goes to the top of the press. This goes in there and the fingers go in there and it all turns into the press bridge lock bushing style. Now this is what actually does a lot of the work here. These fingers, plastic fingers, they will grab the case. Now you can prime any case up to 63.5 millimeters, 2.5 inches. Doesn't use shallowness. And it ships with a small and a large insert. So out of the box, you set up to do most of your calibers already on this press. Now these fingers will grab your case. And with this spring in there, like that, and this goes in there, and that will force the case down onto your primer insert, the bottom half of the press. Now you get this also bridge lock type bushing. You get a primer pin, spring, and the primer insert. Now if you notice there, it's got a sharp end there and a blunt end there. That's important. That's part of the operation of this press. But now notice this. See that? Your primer pin doesn't rise up. The insert is pushed down by the case in these fingers, and your case will be primed at the bottom there. Now for this press to work, once the case is primed, this has to return to the top to feed the next primer out of your primer trough. If you look at the primer trough, there's a little torsion spring there. That spring stops primers from falling out here, and it's also part of the mechanism, it basically fits like that feeds. So that part there is very important. Now that's basically how this press works. It's not like a traditional press where you've got a primer pin inserting a primer into the case. Here you've got a case being forced down and being primed at the same time. Now that part where it's got that spring and it forces it down and it returns to feed the next primer, that's where I found my first problem on this press. But we'll talk about that later. Let's look at the positives of this press. Because of that action there, you've got the spring, you've got everything forcing the case down there. Force is the wrong word to use here because there's actually no force used in this press. It's so smooth, it's easy to prime. This is the easiest priming press I've ever used. Now, positives of this press: easy to prime, easy to set up, no shallow holders. So you buy it out of the box, you can do a lot of calibers already out of the box, up until the limits that you can go, 63.5 millimeters, 2.5 inches. Any case that will fit, you can prime in this press out of the box. You just swap out the small or the large primer insert. The primer trough is the same for small and large. This will stay the same. It's easy to set up, it's easy to use. Once you get this thing set up and you've got a universal case feeder on it and you can feed this press, I promise you it takes longer to feed the cases here than to prime 100 cases. Let's chat about a negative and a problem with the press. But don't worry, the problem's got a solution. So the press doesn't ship with a case feeder. It ships with your case slider and risers for all the different calibers to set that up. But it doesn't ship with a feed cylinder like this. This is a universal case feeder. you're going to have to buy this extra. Or if you have one on one of your other progressive presses, just use that one. I think that's why Lee is not shipping them with that, to cut a bit of the cost. But yeah, that's the one negative about the press. Everything else, excellent. What you get in the box, it's perfect. You can start priming immediately. Just add a case feeder. Now, let's chat about the problem. Remember I told you about that. So a case forces down, it's primed. This has to rise all the way to the top flush. Sometimes that doesn't happen. And when that happens, your primer pin inside there is going to stick out a little bit, and that's going to stop the next primer from feeding on top of the primer pin. That can also cause primers to flip. Now, this press is so smooth and so easy to use, you don't need force to prime on this press. You won't notice that. You'll only notice after you've finished 100 cases that the cases haven't been primed. So that's something to look about, and I thought that's an issue with this press. Now, I've did a lot of modifications and things to try and fix it. It didn't happen a lot, but it did happen. And in my mind, it shouldn't happen. This press should be working perfectly out of the box. So what I found was the problem was with the primer trough. On top of the primer trough is a torsion spring, that spring there. Now, this spring was too strong. It kept this insert as it fits down there, because that's basically how it fits in the press. It kept the primer insert down a little bit, a tiny bit, and it stopped primers from feeding. Now, you can see here I've cut it, I've bent it, and I've been playing around with it. As it is now, it works. So I figured that out. Just a bit of a mod on the spring to weaken it a bit. And then the press worked perfectly. But that's not, you don't want to buy a press and you have to mod it to make it work. And I thought, yeah, Lee has to look at that somehow. That's not the perfect way to do this with. Then a while back, we got a couple of spares for this press in stock. Primer troughs, new primer troughs. And I noticed immediately that the torsion spring is weaker. It's a thinner gauge wire, so it's not as strong as this one. And I thought, yeah, they might have sorted things out here. So I got this, I got it into the press. I set up the press, I got a full box of Fiocchi primers, not 150, 1,500 primers. And I started priming here. And a few hours later, I ran out of primers. This press went through 1,500 primers with not one issue. Just the lightening of that spring has solved the problem here. And also, on the older one, I don't know if you can see, it doesn't want to open up like this one does. It's a bit tight. So there's a little tab there that rocks in the back of the press here. When your primer tray is in here, that rocks the primer tray and that makes sure the primer feeds. And that didn't always happen with the old one. So I added a cable tie to force that. And it worked. So I had two mods on the press and those mods worked. But with the new primer trough, I didn't need to do that. The primers in the tray were constantly rocked with the motion of the press. And they kept feeding. And like I said, 1,500 primers later, not one issue. Okay, so just by the change of that spring, Lee's made this press work perfectly. If your press is giving you any trouble, especially the primer insert not popping up all the way, I suggest get yourself a new one of these. So that's my long-term review of this press. I've done 5,000 primers on this press, plus minus. Can be more, can be a little bit less. The press hasn't shown any wear or anything like that. It just works. The problems I had, I solved with one or two small mods, but Lee has stepped up and they fixed it themselves. So big props to them. So in my mind, game changer. This is a great priming option for you. If you still got a hand primer, throw that away. Get yourself one of these. This thing makes life so much easier. It feeds cases, it primes so easy. It's just a wonderful little press. So our next review that's going to come up, that's a big one. I'm excited. My friends at Bullet Corp. These oaks make excellent coated bullets. Not only coated bullets, they have gone as far as designing new expanders for the Lee powder through dies. To load coated bullets, you have to flare your cases a bit more or a little bit deeper, and the expander plug just goes that much deeper than a Lee plug, and it just solves so many leading issues for oaks. They've recently even launched one for Dillon presses, but more importantly, they've designed their own single stage press right here in South Africa, designed and built in South Africa. This press is amazing. It's a single stage press, but it's built for one purpose: precision. This is the only press that I know of that has no play, no play on the ram. So you want to subscribe to our channel here. Coming soon in the following weeks, we're going to have that press here, and we're going to have another loading expert join us, and we're going to do a full review of that press. Thanks guys, see you then.